Hi and welcome back to our YouTube channel. On today's episode, Jenny's air suspension collapses. Can I change her airbags without them exploding? This video footage is set about 6 months ago, before it went in for the MOT. It's really important for you to always take notice of advisories on MOTs. My advisory on the MOT was I had a perished set of airbags for the air suspension. I ignored it. I didn't completely ignore it, but I ignored it to I could have smashed the van up. I was driving home the other day and basically one of the airbags got a small hole in it and it started to leak. The air compressor overheated, shut down, and I ended up having no rear suspension whatsoever. It was banging on the bump stops. Time I realised what was actually happening, I was flying out of the driver's side seat. Luckily I was going in a straight line, and I was just going over a piece of road that was really left, right, up, down, and there's some bad subsidence in this road and some cracking and all that sort of thing. Anyway, and it resulted in me flying out of the driver's side seat. And I'm like going, only by a couple of inches, and I was wearing a seatbelt, so that was holding me down. But it wasn't pleasant. Turned the ignition off, turned it back on, recycled it. The air compressor, there was a little red light on saying there was something wrong, which should have been like a beep or something that could kill you, this sort of thing. Anyway, I recycled it, air compressor started back up. The air suspension came up really slowly on one side, and that's made me think to myself, I've definitely got a hole. Took it home, and then in the morning came back out to it, and the air suspension on the passenger side had completely deflated. I went, it's either an air solenoid gone or I've got a hole in the airbag. I'd lay money it was the airbag because of the advisory on the MOT. Anyway, so I've got to change the airbag. So I've changed that particular airbag. I was in a hurry. I didn't actually record it, and I've but I have recorded doing the passenger side. I had a little bit of experience, which was just as well, because it was quite scary doing the first one, but there you go. The ambulance service had employed VB air suspension, so I assumed all the air suspension was part of their kit, because it has a VB air suspension compressor on it, which I'd already seen, and so I managed to find out where they were. There was a depot in Norwich. I then rung the depot in Norwich, turned around and said, I need some airbags. I have one of your kits. And they went, what is it? And I turned around and told them what it is. And they went, oh, yes, sir, you need to contact Peugeot. And I went, huh? Peugeot? Well, apparently, my particular model comes with air suspension from Peugeot. So I went, okay, fine, fair enough, no problem. So he gave me the part number for Peugeot, Citroën, and also Fiat, so I could ring them up. He also told me they're on back order, and he doesn't know when they're going to be in again. And I went, okay, fair enough. But this was VB suspension. I didn't bother ringing. He told me how much they were retail. I think about £240 each. So I just hopped onto eBay. You never know, somebody may have some new old stock, and yeah, there was a guy selling air suspension units. Basically what had happened was somebody bought a campervan. They wanted springs, so they had him retrofit springs, and he got these airbags, which had done, well, he turned around and said to me like 50 miles, but as you can tell, that's not quite true. I purchased one, first of all, and fitted it on the side that was leaking. Absolutely fine, perfect, no problem at all, no leaks. And so then I purchased another two. The one that I purchased first of all was a year and a half old, because they got date stamps on them, and the other ones were less than a year old. So I was perfectly happy with that, and the one you see me fit is the second one, so it's on the driver's side. It wasn't leaking, it always stayed up, so it didn't need changing, but they said on the advisory I didn't want it to start leaking. Once I'd extended the airbag fully, I was horrified to see all the rust that was in it. Of course, that was grinding a hole all the way round on it and making it perish. I thought it was clean, but I was wrong. So this is the video of me changing it. Now, things that you do need to know. If you have a standard Peugeot or standard Fiat, Citroen, whichever, the air compressor is on the rear axle. The air compressor reservoir is on the rear axle. Well, it's not on the rear axle, it's on the rear subframe, but you get where I'm coming from. And all the airlines are there. They just run the wires from front to back. VB air suspension kit, they run a bigger air compressor and a bigger airline. There are electric sensors that detect for automatic levelling. So it always, no matter what weight is in it, it always stays the same height, which I find is quite a useful feature. If you've overloaded your vehicle, it doesn't show it. But, the vehicle wasn't really designed to be 4.5 tonne. So obviously that's the reason why they put bigger airline and more heavier duty air compressor, so they can put heavier poundage air into the airbags. Airbags seem to be able to cope with it okay, so I don't have a problem. So this is my story of changing them. This fitting here is really, really soft, and you can strip the thread out of the plastic, not of the brass. And basically it has one, I'll find out what size it is later, in there, and you pivot it and pull it out, and one in the bottom.
Could have had that for you, not obviously under there, but...
Yeah. And you have one bolt there, that's in the bottom of the airbag, and that's the bit you pivot, and obviously and there's the front one. And make sure the airbag is empty, which it is. I'm cleaning out the brass threads, and then I've gone to get some PTFE tape, and it's just to make sure that it seals better. Doesn't need it, but I put it on there just to make sure better air seal. I can't express this enough. Do not over tighten this. It doesn't take hardly any poundage at all when you tighten that brass nut up, gland up, whatever you like to call it. It really is soft plastic. I put the PTFE tape on it to make sure that it was a nice airtight seal. While I was actually doing this job, I was actually listening stroke watching the Formula 1 Grand Prix. That's what's on the tablet in the background. So when I haven't coupled into the airlines yet. But what I've done is I try using the limiter switches to actually allow the airbags to pump up and pump down. So I know if I actually lower the car, the limiter switch will engage and the airbag will inflate. And as you can see, disaster. So I decide to patch into the airlines and deal with it all myself. So what I found out at the end of this process, once I get there and I know exactly what to do, what I need to do is I need to drop the wheel or drop the axle as far as I can and then pump the airbag up to about 90 psi. And it can handle 90 psi, no problem at all, but I didn't want to put 90 psi in it because I was, it normally runs between 60 and 70 psi, but it can run up to 110, but I didn't want to take the risk, and it's something I haven't done before, so this is where it needs to be. So the problem is the airbag is creased the other side, and I'm trying to get the crease out. The only way that I can do it is by lifting the vehicle up as high as it'll go and inflating it up to a pressure that it will push the crease out. But I didn't know that the airbags are quite happily handling 110 psi, but I didn't know that. I only knew that they could handle between 60 and 70 psi, and I'm afraid I don't want it to go bang. I've heard of what happens when compressed air goes bang with tyres, so I'm just being extremely cautious, and eventually I get there and I work out what needs to happen. So I jack the vehicle up as high as it'll go, or as high as my jack will take it, and then put the PSI in it, and it then pushes the crease out, and then it will go up and down, no problem at all. Oh, there it goes. That's it, she's done. At long last. She's done. But just remember, this isn't a how-to video. This is how I did it. If you're in any way not sure the best way to go about it, call a professional. So when I did the other side, what I had to do was I had to take off the limiter switch, the little bar. I popped it off of its ball and socket, and you then have to, you're lowering the you either push it up or push it down, and one releases air and one increases air. But what you want to do is you want to lift the body up as far as it'll go, and then as far as it'll go, and lift the body, so then you pull the limiter switch down, and then the air compressor will inflate the actual airbag, and then it should take out all the creases. Don't forget, you must put the little ball and socket back together so the limiter switch can actually run at its correct height. So I'm just fitting gauges and the pipe connectors into the pressure regulator using PTFE. You can only put it on one way, otherwise when you screw it in it takes the PTFE off. You'll only make the mistake once, just tighten them up so that you put them to a decent poundage and you're laughing. So the trick is, if you cut with a knife, is not to press hard, not to press and distort the actual pipe. Just gently go backwards and forwards, roll it, and it will slice straight through
like
the pipe.
a pair of wire cutters, they crush, and if you crush them, then you risk splitting the side. Right, that's good. That's one piece there. Just push. And if you want to undo it, you just pull this and it will go click, and then it will just pull out, see? So that's nice and easy, and also they rotate and all sorts, but there you go. There we go. In the fully down position. Just under 60. Now I've asked it to rise. There you go. Just under 70.
Thanks for watching my channel. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It's completely free.